Hello viewers and welcome to another episode of Lancer Custom Werks, where I will be discussing the various mech builds you could make and play with Lancer. Amber Phantom likes taking things on its own turn. Metal Mark and Amber Phantom is almost the same thing, but whereas Metal Mark avoids damage by not being seen, Amber Phantom avoids damage by seeing incoming attacks, effectively giving it soft cover near constantly, and also moves people with it, and also does more damage with it. The more damage part is really interesting as you have to choose a turn order and stay with that choice to do more damage, or by just cooking yourself alive. This means a frame whose whole theme is seeing the future, actually ends up being quite predictable to the GM, ironic, which is why you will see quite a few builds that choose to stack up reaction options to deal with these out of turn situations. It also means that compared to the Metal Mark, Amber Phantom might run a tad hotter if you take your turn wrong, and do remember that the target has to be in your sensor range, so you have to be closer for it to work too, so you might want to be a bit more careful. But use its core power right, and Amber Phantom can easily team up with its buddy for a powerful 1-2 punches that none of your foes are ready to handle, and because it's also efficient, it's not a surprise that universal compatibility would be very useful on this thing, not just for the healing but also to clear heat as a panic button, all to further stretch out your repair supply count. As for the builds, primarily, the Amber Phantom is a highly effective striker, but it's still a generalist enough frame that it can do most other things well. 3 weapon mounts really solve a lot of problems. Anyway, let's take a look at the most common of the Amber Phantom builds, the striker controller builds. I go invisible and set things on fire is what a lot of Amber Phantom here will be doing. Hitting a target with shock knife, then torch lets you blind them with shock wreath and also set them harder on fire. Another knife attack also get added in via Hunter 3. But this build will run a bit hot with the weapon and active camo, which is why Technophile Black Thumb combo is here for you to cool things off, and as you cool down, you also explode everything around you. You probably noticed that while Amber Phantom works differently than Metal Mark, their stats and mounts are almost exactly the same, so this build as well as almost any build in this episode can literally be used for Metal Mark and vice versa, and the only way your enemy can tell the difference is if the frame is more invisible than usual or they are getting violently beaten up by the power of friendship. So let's actually talk about something that's built around this thing. Rubicon is an Amber Phantom that wants to guess things wrong on round 1 so it can set itself on fire to activate Nuclear Cavalier, which is such a genius move. With Stormbringer it can knock enemies around with its missiles and rockets, or it can get close to burn and teleport around people, and unsurprisingly, you gonna see active camo and Infiltrator a lot here because making this thing even harder to be hit off its turn is a really good idea. Being really hard to hit off turn also means that Auto Cooler is an attractive option. This is calculated Overkill, an Amber Phantom that can use Heatfall OC loop to do more destruction on its turn more, and when things get too hot, just turn invisible, sit still, and wait it out, unless you got really unlucky, though you got AGNI as a panic button for that scenario. Sithrak, the god who hates you, I kinda surprised to see this getting referenced here, is a Half-Vlad Amber Phantom, which means you got all the tools to immobilize people. With one neat trick revolved around Spaceborn, you hit someone with the shock knife, then you shoot them with the Impaler, and thanks to Spaceborn 3, they are likely to get stuck right there, very helpful when you need a berserker to sit still. Bondage and checkers, I really should have picked another build to talk about with how in the hole this video is in already, is a Amber Phantom all about pulling and immobilizing people with 2 magnetic cannons, ferrofluid lance, and other things to keep enemies around it so they can miss every attack against it on its off turn, allowing its allies to do things without getting shot, and since it has 18 goddamn evasion, that's not gonna be a problem unless the witch shows up. Imperator is a flying Amber Phantom that's basically gonna fly across the entire map into someone's face and then blast them apart with shotguns, and then just use reactive weave when you really don't want to get hit when you are surrounded by enemies because you will be. Its MAHVEL baby is a combined arms Amber Phantom that wants to charge straight in with Pancrathy to punch the shit out of people. I know I said hyper awareness is like soft cover to Amber Phantom, but it's not literally one, which means the soft cover you get with CA1 stacks with it, making you having hard cover when being in someone's face. Pancrathy 3 also means that you can bring in a brawler buddy, who you can then activate core power with to punch the shit out of someone together. Finally, there's float like a butterfly, sting like a bee eventually, an Amber Phantom loaded up with reaction to do things off turn, like leader, tactician, stasis bolt, and a bunch of brace. It's an all-rounder build that does a little of everything in anticipation of every situation. Also, here's the thing about Battle Oracle, it lets you move people if a hostile miss you. Anyway, this build also has mine, so that's gonna be fun. And that's about it on the striker controller builds. When you think about it, An Amber Phantom player really has an opportunity to really analyze the battlefield until it moves without being too far from the fight, as it's just plain harder to be hit, until it moves, so you have more chance to properly turn the tide of the battlefield by making the situation react to you, rather than you reacting to an immediate danger like a berserker that's about to maul your face off. So really, an Amber Phantom that can deal decent damage and still take control of the battlefield is gonna be one dangerous unit for sure, but of course, you can always just deal more damage with pure striker builds. Ukulane is an Amber Phantom with a big stick, flicker field keeps it invisible even if it's not using active camo, and with combined arms, it's gonna be in hard cover basically almost all the time, and if you feel like deleting someone, the Warpike is gonna have 5d6 damage together from Shock Wreath, Nuclear Cavalier, OP Cal, and Amber Phantom's core passive, so, yeah no, that's gonna hurt. Guaranteed Events is an Amber Phantom primarily built around its Autopod, which it wants to trigger its reaction with by using Spotter for all the lock-on, meaning whenever you feel like it, you can follow up an ally attack by slamming a 3+3d6+3 again thanks to Hunter Lock worth of damage to make sure something is dead. This works because possibility mapping only said that you have to take the correct turn, it said nothing about having to use the bonus damage in your turn. That said, you have to use it against someone in your 10 sensor range, or you won't get that bonus effect, which means Autopod 15 range might be less useful than it looks at first. Worthless as the sun above clouds is a tough as hell Amber Phantom with 18 health and 20 bloody evasion. This thing is a complete tank, with invisibility and hyperdense armor just to tank even more. It's positively absurd. Sure, HDA makes you slowed, but when you have speed 8, that's only a mild concern, just get right in an enemy group and bring the hurt to them within range 3. Next there's the Harms Dealer, an Amber Phantom that has a weapon for every range so it can deal a stupid amount of damage at any time. Slamming someone with 4d6 damage at 15 spaces is just as funny as doing it in their face too. Active camo, projected shield, and a knife or two will send you to danger zone nicely, so you can activate Nuclear Cavalier early with that. Finally, there's shotguns for days, an Azura Amber Phantom with double DSAS because of course there's gonna be one of these. Azura Barrage plus Skirmish plus Heatfall OC Loop Skirmish will deal out an absolutely staggering amount of damage at near point blank range. Use this in combination with your core power to annihilate everything with your friends. Like any frame with a simple +1 damage trait or passive, Amber Phantom is perfectly capable of doing stupid amount of damage at the right time, you just need to figure out how to do it consistently. Next up, Striker Support. Tactical Breach Wizard is an iconoclast Amber Phantom here to blast people up close with lightning or shotgun. You have so many NHP for so much benefits to you or your allies, Eye of Horus to see everything, and dual shotgun so someone will always get hurt even when you aren't shooting. That said you have low E defense, a problem most SSC builds have, which is why Lesson of Disbelief is here to add 2d6 accuracy to any system save when you inevitably get hit by one, so if you are building a half Horus Amber Phantom, you might want to consider this. Dread it, run from it. Fomorian Battle Taxi still arrives, is of course a Battle Taxi Amber Phantom, with House Guard and Argonaut Shield to protect your passenger and Pancrathy to run straight into combat. You can also activate your core power so your passenger can immediately start shooting when you get into range with your speed. Then there's Sting Like a Butterfly, a half-Sunza flying Amber Phantom that can teleport your teammate halfway through the map or bending shots around the corner. Do remember with Ace, you get +1 to agility save, add in your core passive and no grenade can hit you at all, and with all these mobility, you can always stick by your allies for benefit with combined arms, tactician, and bonded. The power of throwing all the support talents or systems at your ally and then immediately get to have them activating their turn is not to be underestimated. It's a really useful tool. Anyway, the last of the striker builds, the Striker Defender. The safest way to not have your GM hate you for playing Gorgon is of course, a half Gorgon Amber Phantom, because as it turns out, since you will predictably be standing around and doing nothing, your GM might goes for your allies instead, in which case, Vorpal Gun will be very useful to punish enemies for it, with Neuralink to increase the range to 8. Other than that, there's also House Guard, Held Image, Empath, Field Analyst, Scylla, and many more tools to both protect and aid your allies to even off your turn. Plenty of considerations here. Vorpal Phantom is of course, a variant of half Gorgon Amber Phantom, more focused on protecting and cooling itself but still a very dangerous phantom to be around even when it's off its turn. The last builds are the Artillery Amber Phantoms. I said artillery, but these builds still want to be within range 10 of an enemy to get that bonus damage, it's just that they also prefer enemies to at least still be 5 spaces away for personal safety. Time best spent doing something else is a support Amber Phantom with a bunch of support tools like Sisyphus, Pepcock, and more, and is still able to charge up Orator dice while using all its weapons because all of that happens at the end of your turn, and therefore, you can decide what order all that can happen, so even when you are spending all your actions to support your allies, you can still do some serious damage with those auto guns. Psychic Bastard is a half-Emperor Ember Phantom that can throw Overshield everywhere, and also throw Bolt Nexus everywhere even after taking a structure because it has 3 of them. These things are pretty dangerous to even the more evasive enemies. Just activate your active camo, and you can stay close to your allies and throw hands everywhere. We have Tokugawa at home is of course, not a half Tokugawa Amber Phantom build as demonstrated by its dual fusion rifles. EXT Bat and Neuralink make it real easy to make those rifles deal max 6 damage, and remember, you will be doing a lot of bonus damage. Walking Armory with Hellfire round will turn those bonus damage to burn, that's a lot of destruction. Also Flash Charges is here, but your allies will probably need those more than you do. I-5 is a warp rifle armed Amber Phantom that can make it do something like 5d6 bonus AP damage, that can also be turned into burn, but the funnier option would be to use Jaeger round and send someone 12 spaces backward. You have weapons for other situations too, and you have blink charges to move yourself around as you will be immobilized from using crack shot. And lastly, there's Get Your Eyes Checked, the only artillery defender Ember Phantom here. Main goal here is to pick a target you want to be real annoying with, and challenge them to a duel with Exemplar, then use Type 3 shield and hyper awareness to just ignore its attack almost completely while it can barely hurt anyone else. To overcome the problem that you two will have trouble hitting anyone else, you have Bolt Nexus, reliable on one enemy, Assault Rifle, reliable, and Shatterhead, don't give a shit about difficulty. You also have Accelerate and Dominion's Breadth, support tool that don't count as attack at all so you can use them even while dueling someone. And that's 40 Amber Phantom builds finished reviewing. Once again, I would like to thank all of my viewers who have submitted their builds to this episode. Amber Phantom really is a frame that defines its role on the battlefield by taking their time and then absolutely wreck shit when it's their turn. Use it right with your allies, and you can decisively destroy your enemies. Use it wrong, and well, just get ready to pay the repair bill. It's not that bad. Just the fact that you basically have soft cover almost constantly is quite a useful thing. You can afford to wait things out, but whether your allies can is a problem you will want to have answers for, and I hope you get answers to that here. Anyway, like last episode, there's gonna be one last round of submission before you know what is coming, and of course, it's Kutuzov. Have fun people, that's all for now, and I will see you all next time. Hello there, if you like this video, please subscribe and click that notification bell button. If you want to see the videos early as well as further support my channel, you can join in my Patreon page, or buy me some coffee, links in the description. Anyway, have a nice day.